Hey guys, Unfrequented World Photography coming at you from inside the house today. Unfortunately, it's pouring rain outside. It's really crummy. I can't get out and do any birding or metal detecting or any of my cool hobbies. So today I thought, being stuck inside the house, this might be a good day to do a comparison video of some vintage lenses. So I've got a couple of M42 specials that I'd like to show you guys. They're both 35mm, things I picked up on eBay relatively cheaply compared to a new autofocus version. And we'll compare those. And using our new screen capture software, you guys will be able to see at 100% right on the screen what I'm seeing. So we won't be videotaping the screen. You'll actually get to see what I see in Photoshop and have a real comparison viewed in on these lenses at 100% or so. So let's get at it. Okay guys, so there we have my manual lens drawer. It's got a lot of Tamron Adaptol SP lenses in there and a couple of M42s at the back. But what we want to take a look at today are two 35mm lenses. This one here is the Vivitar 35mm f2.8 M42 lens. The second one is a lens that I found on eBay and bought in a set. It's also a 35mm M42, and the brand on that is called Dimension. Okay, I'd never heard of that before, and I had to do a lot of research to find anything out about it. They were sold in Canada, and I believe it's actually an Elicar lens. And that came in a set with another one that I got down here, the 135. And what I did was I ended up counting the ribs on these focus rings, and that's the only way I could track down the parent company. And there was a little tiny bit of information in there after about 3 days of work that tells me that these were Elicar lenses. And they're actually both very good. And like I say, I got the set for $10. And then I think I paid something like $7 shipping, but both fantastic lenses. The Vivitar has a bit more of a reputation. It's a little more well known, and I think I paid about $60 for that one. So let's compare those two today. I have a couple of adapters here. This one doesn't have a chip on it. Some of the new ones, that one that's on that camera, which we'll use for both lenses, has a chip which allows in-body stabilization with my Sony A99, which is what we're going to use to do this testing. So it's a full-frame camera, and these are both full-frame lenses, so that's the setup that we're going to use today. Okay guys, if we take a look at this Vivitar lens, which is the one we'll start with, you'll see that the serial number starts with 37. Vivitar had multiple companies manufacturing these lenses, and when I was researching, the research that I came up with was that Tokina, which is very well known and very well respected, made the sharpest, best version of this lens, and if the serial number starts with 37, it is a Tokina Made Vivitar 35mm, and that's what we have here. So filter size is 52mm on this lens. Has 7 elements in 7 groups is the lens design. Almost a 360-degree focus throw for the focusing ring. So quite a ways to spin around, which gives you very nice control in terms of dialing in minimum focus when you've got very thin depth of field. These lenses are very nice for video work. They're very smooth, well dampened. The whole series, not just this lens, but all of the old M42s make excellent video lenses. Okay, so this lens has an aperture of 2.8 to 16. There are 8 diaphragm blades inside there. Okay, and the other important detail here is minimum focusing distance, which is 1.3 feet. Oh, it's right here. Okay, that is 15.5 inches approximately. So this lens here is very similar. It's actually 2.8 to 22, so we get an extra stop on this lens. It's got the same manual auto switch, which is of no use to us in the modern age. What that does is, with these old lenses, there were pins on the bottom which would protrude in auto mode and they would stay held out with a spring, and that would allow you to change your aperture, priority mode, and things like that. However, I actually damaged my camera when putting on one of these lenses with that pin on there. The switch got moved into the auto position, making the pin stick out, and when I put it on my Sony A99 and turned the lens on, the pin actually went past all of the connecting lens connectors, and then it was stuck, wedged in between the last two on the camera. And I learned a valuable lesson, guys. If you're going to run any of these on your new cameras, I recommend take the pliers and cut that pin right off. It's of no use to us. These can only be used in manual mode on the new DSLRs, in aperture mode or manual mode. So if you want to save yourself some grief, back in the day when I didn't know anything about them, I didn't cut that pin off, and it actually had to take my camera apart and learn how to put it all back together. And let me tell you, there are some small little parts in there you don't want to mess with. Anyway, back to this lens. So the Dimensions lens has 6 slightly curved aperture blades, which go from f22 to f2.8. It has a minimum focusing distance of 1.8 feet, which is 21.6 inches, 0.5 meters. The focus throw on this one is not nearly as long. So we're definitely under 360 degrees there, but very smooth, well dampened again. Okay guys, we are looking at the back of the A99, and when I turn it on, you hear it looking for a lens there. Now we're set up in f2.8 aperture, and I have focus peaking on. So I just wanted to show you guys. When I start rocking focus out towards the shed, you'll see a red outline will eventually appear. At the bottom of the screen, that blue spruce is coming into focus, and you'll see it's starting to be outlined in red. And as focus moves out, now on the shed, whatever is in focus is highlighted in red. What's not in focus, that's called focus peaking, and that allows us to use these old lenses very efficiently. Another thing I have set up is that we can zoom in to check our focus. We're almost at infinity there, so it's pretty easy to see. But we can, I have 2 levels of focus magnification as well. So if we had a tree or something in there, it'd be pretty easy to see the detail or some writing or whatever. But between those 2 advancements in modern cameras, they make using the old manual focus lenses much easier. Okay guys, the next step is to take some comparison shots between the 2 lenses. We can start with some landscapes here and move towards some macro shots. We can compare color rendition between the 2 lenses, sharpness, out of background focus rendition. We can also check for flare, and we can look at vignetting and just see how these 2 lenses render and compare to each other, and if either one of them stands out more than the other. Here we can see I've done a couple outdoor shots, and I'm just going to shoot these remotes here. And I've actually got the camera set up with 2-second timer at 1/13 just to make sure there's no shake introduced. And we're doing 2.8 shots and f8 shots for comparison. So I do one of each. I use the same lens to start for each test. And then I switch to the other lens and repeat the test. Okay guys, you might be wondering, how is this going to produce a good picture with a strong backlight and a really strong lamp to throw at the lens? It's not. We're just putting the 2 lenses in the worst possible situation here just to see what kind of ghosting we can get from having a strong backlight and what kind of lens flare we can get at the same time. I'll do a couple of shots and maybe just rearrange the light slightly on my head just to see if we can make one better than the other, but let's just see worst case scenario what happens. Okay guys, here we are in the computer. We've got 20 sample photos taken, 6 different tests with those 2 lenses, and let's just open up the first batch in our program. Paint Shop Pro X9. Okay, so if we look at the top, I've named them all. This is the Dimensions lens f2.8, and then f8, and this is the Vivitar lens f2.8 and f8. So if we scroll between, we can quickly compare. This is Dimensions lens, this is the Vivitar lens. So the first thing I notice is the Vivitar lens seems to have a little more vignette on it. It's a little darker around the outside edges. If you look down in the corners here, the extreme corners, it seems to be quite a bit darker. The Dimensions lens does have vignetting at 2.8, but it's not as dark. Okay guys, on to another test. This test here was designed to look at the sharpness of the two lenses. We're going to start again with the Dimensions at f2.8. And if we zoom into the center here, and we can go into 100%, and we can see that it's very sharp. We can read all of the small text on the movie boxes here. And if we go in, we can go even into 300%, and we see those nice sharp edges on the numbers here. That shows it's a very sharp lens in the middle, even at f2.8. We were only a few feet away from the movies here, but it still gives you a good idea at f2.8 it's doing a good job. Let's switch to the Vivitar, and we come into the center here, and we can see quite a bit more glow wide open on that lens. Here's 100%. We can still read all of the text and everything, but it has a bit of a glow to it. It's fairly soft. And we'll go into 300%. And we'll look at the Will Smith movie here, 16537, and we'll come back, and there we can compare them at f2.8. There is the Vivitar lens, there's the Dimensions lens. So quite a bit more glow and not as sharp as the Dimensions. Okay, now that's the center, guys. Let's look down here in the corner. So we're back on the Dimensions lens. And hot fuzz is a bit of a hot mess down here in the corner. It's fairly soft and quite blurry. Let's check the Vivitar lens. Okay, and we'll go into 150%, the same as the Dimensions. And here we actually see that the Vivitar has sharper corners. So it might not be as sharp overall, but it does have corners that are outperforming the Dimensions lens. It's still a little soft. It's f2.8, so it's not going to be super crisp. Okay. Now let's go to our f8 versions, guys, and we'll take a look at those. So here's Dimensions at f8. In the center, we know it's going to be very crisp. That's 300% on the Dimension lens f8. And here's 300%. 300% on the Vivitar lens at f8 in the center. There's Dimensions. There's Vivitar. Not much difference there, guys, at all. Very sharp. Okay, so now we can check our corners. We'll come out and we'll go back into the hot fuzz. 200% on the Vivitar lens. There's 200% on the Dimensions lens. And we see again that in the corners, the Vivitar is actually winning at f8 as well. Okay guys, here we are on the really horrible backlighting and flare test that we did. And they're all pretty much the same. So you're looking at the Dimensions lens at f2.8. and at f8. I didn't line these up very good. It was very hard to focus, but just look at the flare that we're getting and the ghosting that we're getting. And that's typical of these old lenses that aren't multi-coated. This is absolute worst case scenario, guys. And here's the Vivitar, the same thing. There's f8, f2.8. They're very similar across the board. But what I will show you guys, I just did a quick correction. You can get rid of some of that ghosting on this image here, just to show you guys. They are all workable in post. So just using my contrast and whatever, I got rid of quite a bit of that ghosting. And this is an absolute worst case scenario. So if we had a picture that was worth keeping, you could work it and you could easily save it using post-processing tools. But that's a whole other video. So let's get on to our next test. Okay guys, the last two tests were bokeh tests, out of focus rendering tests. What I wanted to do was just take 2.8 shots with each lens, and I did one in the bedroom here to show when it's not a very busy background. This is the Dimensions lens at 2.8. This is the Vivitar lens at 2.8. And if you guys look in the background, just study that bokeh a little bit. It's not much different between the two lenses. Okay, let's check the sharpness again just for giggles at f2.8. This is the Dimensions lens. There we are at 150%. There is the Vivitar. Not much difference, guys. So 2.8, very usable. And again, the bokeh is probably about the same. Okay, so the next test, I wanted to put the little teddy bear outside and try it with a bunch of leaves in the background, so we had a busy bokeh to look at. Bokeh, however it's pronounced, tit for tat, right? Okay, so this is the Dimensions lens again, f2.8. And there's the Vivitar lens. Not much difference. The branches moved a little bit on the left side, but that's about it. So right there is Vivitar, and there is Dimensions. Well, there you guys have it. My review of the M42 35s that I own, the Vivitar Tokina version, and this Dimensions. And I have to say that for $5 for something like this, guys, they are fantastic lenses. They have limitations, of course, but as we mentioned, the new DSLRs have some high-tech gear and stuff in there that makes focusing with them a lot easier. You can't beat a lens like this, guys. Solid metal. You could drop this, it's going to keep working. Okay, I own all the new autofocus Minolta and Sony versions as well. And for video, these are better because they have smooth, well-dampened rings. And in terms of picture quality, it's going to be very close, guys. Let's not kid ourselves. The only difference is price and autofocus. So if you're like me and you like vintage stuff, you can't beat either of these lenses, guys. Get out there and get them if you can. Do some testing and let the world know how great this old vintage stuff is. Thanks for watching.